Alrighty, so yeah, we are finally back in terms of doing the Moving Forward series episode. It's been a while since I have done a Moving Forward series episode, but I assure you that I am definitely working hard to try to get all of these done, and especially I'm trying to get this done before we get to either the end of the year or even in the beginning of January, because before you know it, I have to do the season preview for all 30 teams before the MLS season will start in not long from now. It's hard to believe that it's only going to be about 2 months or so when we're finally going to see the first game of the 2025 MLS season, and we're going to find out who exactly could be the favorites in terms of not only reaching the playoffs, but also maybe becoming the MLS Cup champion, or maybe the Galaxy can repeat as champion as well. So one team that definitely are probably not going to be MLS Cup champion and maybe not even a playoff contender is Toronto FC. So we talked about before how this really felt like it's the first year of a deep rebuild that this TFC team has gone themselves in, mainly because with all the bad moves that they made over the years, it has really set the team back, and this was really just the beginning of them trying to do the cleanup and trying to obviously get rid of some of the dead weight, and in some sense they kind of got rid of a couple of the dead weight, and in some way they kind of had a pretty good season as well, even though they didn't make it to the playoffs, and it was kind of an excruciating way for them to miss out on the playoffs. They were in the playoff hunt for a long time, but then they missed out near the end. But if you look deeply, I mean, I don't think any TFC fans would say that they really made any progress in terms of this rebuild. In fact, it feels like they're kind of back to where they begin in terms of this deep rebuild and this deep cleanup that they're gonna have to go through. Maybe this season and also next season as well to get themselves back to being a contender team that like we saw about 5 or 6 years ago. Now that being said, they finished with an 11-4-19 record and finished with 37 points. So obviously the goal of this team is to not finish dead last. They didn't finish dead last this season. Many people predicted they were going to finish dead last. Many people predicted that they were going to finish around the 20-point range, just like they did in 2023. Didn't happen though. They scored 40 goals this season, but they gave up 61 goals this season. The defense was a little bit better, at least in the beginning of the season. Yeah, as the season goes along, it started to turn back, just like what we saw last season. And I even mentioned many times, it feels like TFC in the beginning may have overachieved a little bit, and then when reality started to set in, it definitely set in hard, especially on the defensive end. And they finished with goal differential of -21, and they finished 11 in the Eastern Conference. Now, looking at the last 5 seasons, as we know in 2023, absolute disaster season. I mean, they finished with one of the worst record and one of the worst points total we've ever seen in league history, with a 4-10-20 record, and finished with just 22 points in 15 position. Not surprisingly, did not make the playoffs. It didn't get better in 2023 either. They finished 13 with a 9-7-18 record and finished with 34 points. 2021, they finished 13 with a 6-10-18 record and finished with just 28 points. So yeah, the fact that the last 2 years and in the last 3 year in general, they have only registered less than 100 points in the last 3 seasons. And that says a lot about a franchise that is clearly stuck in the mud and are just trying to get through this beginning of the rebuild to get themselves out of this deep mud that they kind of put themselves in. Now in 2020, this was really kind of the last good season that this TFC team, and really the last good season of the quarter they had, finished in second position with a 13-5-5 record in the COVID shortened season and finished with 44 points. But then the playoff happened, and the playoff couldn't end in a more embarrassing way, losing to Nashville SC in the first round, and in the wrong part of history of losing to an expansion team in the playoffs, and Nashville becoming the first team to win multiple games in the playoff as an expansion team since the Chicago Fire that eventually went all the way to win MLS Cup in 1998. And then in 2019, they speaking of MLS Cup, they actually did reach MLS Cup in 2019. That was part of the third MLS Cup, of part of a trilogy of MLS Cup between Toronto FC versus Seattle. That was kind of near where people were getting tired of seeing TFC versus Seattle in the final. But they finished with a fourth place finish with a 13-11-10 record and finished with 50 points. But unfortunately, they weren't able to win the trilogy in the MLS Cup, and in some way, the Seattle Sounders got their revenge against Toronto in that 2017 MLS Cup as they lost that MLS Cup in 2019. Now, looking at the top goal scorer for this team, so besides the fact that they concede a lot of goals, they don't score a lot of goals either, and they don't really have a true goal scored of this team. The players that are currently in the top spot is actually a tie between Federico Benedeschi and DeAndre Kerr with 5 goals. Then you got Lorenzo Insigne with 4 goals, Jonathan Osorio with 4 goals, and Mark McKay to rounds up the top five with 2 goals. The same goes for the top assist leader too. They don't really have a legit number 10 in this team as well. Their captain Jonathan Osorio actually leads the team with 6 assists. You would think Lorenzo Insigne would be that guy that be the assist maker for this team, but no, he only had 5 assists this season. Continue the theme of going down as one of the biggest DP busts we have ever seen. I mean, between him and Jordan Shaqiri, probably is going to go down as two of the biggest busts we have ever seen in terms of DP signing. And this is what happened when you don't want when you decide to sign a player that they're getting near the end of their twilight career and they did really well in Europe. They were really hoping that both Insigne and Benedeschi can bring something similar to what Javenko did when he came into the league in Juventus, and yeah, it hasn't really worked out whatsoever. But Benedeschi's got 4 assists in third place, and then you got Richie Larea with also 3 assists, and rounding out the top five, you got Petretta with 2 assists for Toronto FC. Now, looking at the best win of this season, it's got to be that Canadian Classic win that they had against Montreal, and this was back when Montreal was actually doing okay. But yeah, they absolutely thrashed Montreal in that one. 5-1 was the victory, probably the best that TFC has played in a very long time. But looking at the worst loss of the season, there were definitely a couple that I could go be in the in terms of the worst loss of the season, but it's got to be that game against the New York Red Bulls. I mean, you're playing at home against a Red Bulls team that pretty much are kind of falling apart as the season goes along, and that not only the fact that they did not win that game in a game that had a lot of playoff implication and them trying to keep themselves above the red line, but to lose them like that and to just getting absolutely destroyed by a Red Bull team that doesn't have a lot of confidence in terms of scoring in front of goal, just an ultimate embarrassing performance by TFC. And up to that point, the writings were already kind of on the wall that it doesn't seem like Toronto is going to make it. That was probably the final nail in the coffin in that game. Now, in terms of average attendance, despite the fact that this team has been so poor in the last couple of games, the attendance it's still pretty good. I mean, 25,681. It's good for eighth in the league, and you can't deny the support that this TFC team gives, or these TFC fans give to this team. They definitely will show up. I mean, they won't really show up in the beginning of the season because it's relatively cold, but as the season goes along in the summer, most of the time, BMO is usually packed, and all credit to those fans because for a team that has been just so bad in the last 3 years, have been considering being a doldrum of the Eastern Conference, and a team that kind of looked like where they were in the when they came into the league, and how many people forget that this team was really bad when they came into the league in 2007. All credit has to give to those fans still come in week in and week out and show up and support this team. Now, looking at MVP for this team, I can't really think of any. I mean, there really isn't anybody that is an MVP player and a player that really stood out on this team. The disappointment, I'm gonna go a little cheap on this and say it's the two Italians, even though there were definitely some disappointment in terms of this team besides the two Italians. But you gotta say, with the way that both Insigne and Benedeschi are supposed to be the showcase piece, and once again they did not deliver. I mean, I will say that Benedeschi at least sort of delivered his deal. He definitely has tried more compared to what he did last season. Last season, I think that was one of the biggest criticism of him not really trying, and him and Insigne obviously not only did not see eye to eye with each other, but they were kind of a locker room cancer at time. This year, though, obviously Benedeschi, of course, have tried more and definitely put up the stats as well. Well, the problem for Benedeschi is that the ill discipline that he has. I mean, I think he got 3 red cards this season. You can't do that in a single season, and there were times where fans were very frustrated because of the ill discipline that Benedeschi has put. And talk about The other Italian, Insigne. I mean, I don't really need to mention how Insigne's season has gone. Besides the great show that he put along with Bernardeschi when they first came in the first couple of games, these two Italians has been nothing but disappointment. And again, it's gonna be a big question heading into the off season again is, are they going to keep them even though they know that they kind of almost have to keep both of them since they're both under contract until 2026. Now, in terms of young player to watch, now this has been a team that for how rich the pool is in the local area that Toronto has had. I mean, it's hard to believe. There's a lot of great players that come in the Toronto area. Basically, the Canadian national team. Most of the player that plays in the Canadian national team are from the Toronto area. So the fact that Toronto aren't able to develop any player with all the good talent that they had just kind of also shows you another big problem of this team, where not only they do poorly when it comes to their signing, but they can't develop player if their life depends, even though they literally are in an area that has one of the richest pool, and a team that you would assume this should be a team that could really focus on talent wise. Consider a lot of talented players, especially from the Canadian national team, came from the Toronto area. But I'm gonna say it's gonna be DeAndre Kerr. I feel like he's a very underrated player. I mean, I know he might not be the flashiest player for this TFC side, but at times he can definitely be pop up there in terms of scoring goals. And I think you could say that he's probably the most promising youngster out of this TFC side, and that again just says a lot in terms of the player development and the youth development of this team. It's pretty much almost non-existent, which is kind of shocking to see for a team that is based in a region that has a rich young talent pool. Now, what went right for this TFC side? So again, like I said, they did not finish last as many had predicted. I predicted them to win the wooden spoon, and not only the fact that they did not finish last, but they didn't actually came close to finish last as well. They got off to a good start and even was in the playoff hunt for a while. So for a long time, this team was actually above the red line. I mean, at times they kind of were above the red line, and then they kind of dropped down again. But as I said, throughout out in the beginning of the season, I was really loving the team spirit that this team has had, especially what John Herman has done with this team. He really was getting the best out of the team, and this is another great example of coaching really matters in this league. I mean, you can have all the good players in your team, but if you do not have good coaching, and unless if you're not like Inter Miami decided to get some of the best player in the league and literally have the greatest player of all time playing for you, you're not going to go very far if you have bad coaching, even with a very talented team. And I think John Herman was a very good coach. He did a really good job to get the best out of the team, and as a result, there was progress that was shown on this rebuild under new head coach John Herman. Again, I really liked the hiring last year when they decided to get him, and he definitely show a lot and really was showing some promise that yeah, this TFC team can get themselves back to competitive sooner than we think that they are. The problem is that yeah, John Herman and how of all the good things that he's done for this TFC side. Well, unfortunately, we then heard about what happened with the Canadian national team of the whole drone and Spygate situation, and John Herman obviously was kind of almost in the center of that as well. And yeah, because of that, pretty much John Herman was forced to resign, and that's kind of where it started to went wrong for this time. And I even wrote possibly in disgrace as well, because while they didn't really make the statement that he actually resigned because of that incident, we pretty much know that it's because of that incident. There was more that was going to be found in that incident. There's no doubt that John Herman and TFC kind of had a discussion that hey, we don't want this to get any ugly. This could be a bad look in our face as well. So yeah, that's why John Herman kind of decided to resign, and really again the progress really were erased right now. I mean, he was really the beacon light of this team. He was the guy that really not only brings some good tactical standpoint for this TFC side, but also just really got the best out of this team and then some. Now that he's gone, I mean, it just feels like all those good team spirit that this team has had in the beginning of the season, and really for most part of this season, now completely wiped away. The defense, again, while it was good in the beginning, completely fall apart multiple times throughout the season. I mentioned many times how this defense kind of had some growing pains, and it feels like they revert back to last year. And unfortunately, in the latter part of the season, it was more time or not that it were revert to last season, where it was basically a revolving door in defense. Not even Sean Johnson, who I thought, he had a decent year as well, but when you have a defense that is pretty much a revolving door, there's really not much he can do about it. And then, of course, the last thing that went wrong for this team. I mean, we talked about the bad run of form that they had in the summer as well. That kind of is the beginning of them starting to come back down to earth. But what really was a for them to come back down to earth and simply just kind of collapse late in the season to miss out on the playoffs. They went the final 5 games without a win. They went 0-1 and 4 in the last 5 games. They lost 4 out of their last 5 games, only getting 1 point in the last games to miss out on the playoffs. And to be fair, the fact that they were kind of still in it heading into the second to the last day of match day is kind of incredible considering that when you have a run like that and you're in the midst of a playoff battle, more times or not, you're probably not going to be staying above the red line and or even be part of that playoff battle for very long. But because of the way that the Eastern Conference, if I mentioned times this season where it doesn't seem like anyone want to make the playoffs this season. It feels like teams just keep tripping themselves and keep losing games over and over again. That's why TFC was in it for a very long time, and unfortunately, just like many teams that did not make it to the playoffs, they just never able to restart their engine late and just again simply go through a death spiral that they just never able to overcome. Now, moving forward for this Toronto FC side, so obviously the great news for TFC fans, and this might be also a right step in terms of this deep rebuild that they're still occurring right now, is that the reason why they're in this deep rebuild in the first place, and the reason why I mentioned that it feels like this team has been set back a couple of years because of all the bad moves that they made, is because of Bill Manning. Bill Manning made some very aggressive move, and more time or not, those aggressive moves not only didn't play out, but it absolutely blow up in his face, and then some. And that's kind of the reason why they are in this situation right now. They have so many players that are stuck in bad contract, and while they got rid of some of them, this is gonna take at least a couple of years, and especially the two Italians too, like the contract that they locked up, and now seems even worse and worse as the season goes along, or as the year goes along. That is, yeah. There's no doubt that TFC fans been demanding Bill Manning to be fired for a long time, and finally he was fired in July, and we'll see who, of course, will come up to clean up this mess and kickstart the rebuild once again. Because if there's one thing we know, is that when you finally get rid of one of the biggest reason why it's holding back the team, which in this case it's definitely Bill Manning, and you get the right man to clean up the mess, you can get yourself back to being a contender or even an MLS Cup contender sooner than later. I mean, just ask the LA Galaxy of how for a long time they were held back because of Chris Klein. They finally got rid of him. They hired the right man with Will Kuntz being there, and guess what? They're the defending MLS Cup champion in no time. So it can definitely happen. You can definitely make a turnaround in terms of it, but it's all about hiring the right guy as well. And then, of course, will the two Italians stay for next season as well? Again, their contract is going to be locked to 2026, unless somebody decided to buy them, or if they exercise a contract buyout, which I don't think they actually have right now. They're pretty much stuck with them, and it will be interesting to see whether they're desperately trying to get out the contract. They're desperately trying to have one of the MLS team, or even anybody around the world, to try to take that contract. But unfortunately, they're just no takers, because again, they probably see the contract that they have to give, and even if TFC offer very low sum of money to cut the losses, it is very hard to get rid of that contract and get out of that contract as well. And really, unless that they once again have a buyout again, I think that's going to be something that they'll definitely exercise. I have no doubt one of these Italians is eventually going to get bought out, similar to what we saw when the Fire finally bought out Jordan Shaqiri, and finally got out of that contract that was kind of really holding the team back the past couple of seasons. And then, of course, they need a new head coach because, again, with John Herman being gone, it's going to be interesting to see who are going to be the next head coach of this team. Obviously, there are definitely some interesting candidate out there. I mean, obviously, the top name out there is Jim Curtin, though. Again, it'll be interesting to see whether if they can lure Jim Curtin to there, especially with other teams that has more Luca offer, and especially I think when you look at this team, it is always hard to try to attract a top end coach to try and to kickstart a rebuild because any top end head coach does not want to go to a team to kickstart a deep rebuild and not be competitive at least for the next season or two. They want to head into an environment that will already have a competitive squad and have a vision that the future could be very bright and can get the team to win silverware. I just don't see it with TFC right now, and I don't see it at least for next season or even the season below. This is going to be a big long roll back for this TFC team, and I would not be surprised they might not even be competitive. Um, for these next couple of years, unless if they can get the right GM and get the right sporting director in. Because again, we've seen before where teams are in could be find themselves in the position that they are, and if they can get the right personnel in there, especially in the front office and also in terms of the head coach as well, you can definitely get yourself back to being competitive sooner than they are. But until then, it feels like it's another deep rebuild coming up for this TFC side heading into 2025, and it feels like it's going to be another long season for this TFC side that could potentially miss out on the playoffs for the fourth straight year. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Toronto FC fan, what do you think went right, went wrong? And most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look in the future? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.